Still licking my wounds from the last few days, but I made it. I'm here. I'm battling through on a Monday morning. Welcome in. Hope your day is off to a great start. So I traveled for the holidays for Thanksgiving. I'll be traveling for the holidays too. Don't remind me. But I traveled for Thanksgiving. We went to my in-laws on Wednesday morning. And I booked this flight months ago for Wednesday morning. And we had a direct 7:30 a.m., a little early for the girls. They're 5 and 2, but, they're tough. They'll be fine. Get a direct flight Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. on American Airlines, right? That was the plan. And then about 6 weeks ago, I got an email from American Airlines saying that the flight was no longer a direct flight. It was now a connecting flight. Well, if you've ever booked travel around the holidays, good luck getting a decent price a month out. By that point, you're looking at $600 a pop for plane tickets. So guess what? You're going to stick with what you got. And it was a direct flight, and instead we got a connecting flight. So we got this connecting flight, and instead of leaving at 7:30 as a direct, it's now leaving at 5:59 a.m. as a connecting. Once again, it's okay. I wake up early every day, roll the girls out of bed, drive up to the airport, and go from there. Utilize the parking garage since it was going to be a quick turnaround, and that's going to be that, right? So we get off, we get on the plane. It's 5:52 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, this is good. We got a tight turn, 40-minute connecting flight in Washington, D.C., Reagan Airport there. And we're rolling through the runway. And isn't it weird? I don't know. I mean, since I do a decent amount of flying, I feel like more so than ever, once you back out of your gate, you just start driving in circles at airports now while you're on the plane. Like, I don't get it. I don't know if it's like the pilot doing loop-de-loops on the runway, but it's very bizarre.
Felt like that when I landed in Zurich and we were going to Paris. I thought, are we driving there? Because you had to get on the bus, ride the bus out to the plane. Then the plane got in line with thousands, seemingly, that must fly out of there on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Just one right after the other.
It's crazy. And I feel like we might as well drive there at this point. Then it's about 6:10. We're 10 minutes late. Okay, fine. They build in a buffer on the back end. And the pilot goes, well, we got to de-ice the plane. I'm like, huh? What have you been doing? Usually you de-ice the plane while people are boarding the plane so that way you can take off on time. And it was 28 degrees that morning. I checked my phone in Kansas City. I'm like, you're de-icing at 28? I know it's below freezing, but it's barely. And you just realize you got to de-ice the plane? So now I got to go de-ice the plane. So we take off. It's about 6:20 and 6:25-ish. We should be okay. We're getting closer to Washington, D.C. It's about 9 a.m. Eastern time at this point. The connecting is supposed to land at 9:15, and the next flight is going to leave at 10:10. So it should be all right. But at 9 a.m., we get a message from the pilot. Hey, we got to circle up here for a little bit because it's kind of crowded down there, so we're not going to be able to land. There's nowhere for us to go. What? Dude, we've all got connectings. Like, everyone on that plane was supposed to be on that same direct flight as us, but because American made it a connecting, everyone starts groaning. And then 15 minutes later, the pilot's like, just kidding. We're going to start heading down. We got the go-ahead to head on down there. All right, so we land. It's about 9:41 at this point because I'm looking at my clock. So I got a half hour, 29 minutes to be exact, to get with two little kids to another gate. And the gates were not next to each other. We landed at a D gate. We had to get to an E gate. Here we go. So we're standing there in the aisle. Of course, it takes forever for the damn jet bridge to get to the plane. It felt like it took forever. We get off the plane at 9:48. The doors for the next plane close at 9:55, 15 minutes before the flight takes off. And I grab Chloe, she's our 2-year-old, and I start sprinting with her in my arms. And she's laughing the whole time. She was getting such a kick out of it. I mean, she was like just having a field day. Now, remember, too, I got a wife who's 6 months pregnant. So I got her pulling up the rear with Claire, who's about to be 5, and she starts crying, my legs hurt. And I'm just sprinting to this damn gate. And obviously, I'm not going to get on the plane until the other two show up. But I got a 6-month pregnant wife and a 5-year-old pulling up the rear here. Well, I'm sprinting with a 2-year-old in my arms like, Home Alone. So we make it at 9:52. So we made it by about 3 minutes before the doors closed. But here's my public service announcement. A lot of people did not make it. The second flight was half empty. And why was it half empty? Because they gate checked their bags, their roller bags that you can bring on the plane and not pay for. But the problem is then they had to wait for those bags to come off the plane, wait on the jet bridge, and wait for somebody to bring them their bags. And they were not going to make that flight, that next flight. What we do is, because we're checking bags anyway, since we got kids and stuff, we check at baggage claim the small roller bags, and they're free. If you check them at baggage claim, and they're the bags that typically fit in the overhead bins, you can do it for free on all the major airlines. You don't have to pay for the small bag. Now, you got to figure out how to do it in the system, but you don't have to pay for it. And to me, especially if you're doing a connecting flight, that's the way to go. That way you don't risk standing on the jet bridge waiting for some guy or gal to bring you your roller bin or your roller suitcase so then you can get to your connecting flight, because that's why all those people missed the flight. So that's my public service announcement here. But that wasn't even the worst part. The flight there, we at least made it. So it was high stress, but we made it by about 3 minutes. The way home, I flew home by myself because I got a sister-in-law getting married next week or this week. So we've got the family staying with family right now. So I'm home alone. So how about that? Yeah. Woo! It was a nice quiet weekend, but that's beside the point. Flying home, I get to my gate. We get on the plane. We're coming back to Kansas City. Everything's good. Flight's supposed to leave at 3:30. It was JetBlue, so I got the TV set up. You got some good football going on Friday. I mean, life was good. I had the Mizzou game on the TV. Everything was going well. 3:30, the flight's supposed to leave. 3:35, the pilot comes on. He says, hey, guys, we got a bin in the back of the plane, one of the bins, the overhead bins, and the latch is broken. And we technically can't leave until we get the latch figured out. Like, okay. He's like, should be about 10 minutes. We'll be on our way. 10 minutes becomes 20 minutes. 20 minutes becomes 30 minutes. And he goes, well, we got an update for you. We got some bad news. The latch of the bin that's broken is where the life craft is at. So we got to be able to access the light craft, the boat, essentially, the inflatable boat that you can take if, God forbid, you land in the ocean or something like that. So we're going to have to now switch the latches on two bins so that this bin opens up in case, God forbid, we need the life craft. So he's like, it's going to be a little bit. This is about 4:15. Flight was supposed to take off at 3:30. Another 15, 20 minutes, watching the Mizzou game. Okay, let's go. Keep it moving here. Let's get this thing going. And I'm looking at these guys back there, and they're trying to switch the latches. And I'm like, these guys have no idea what the hell they're doing. I'm looking at these three guys, and I'm like, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, maybe they stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, but they do not know what they're doing. I could see it in their eyes, John. They were clueless.
Nothing to see here, folks. Just planning for your eventual demise.
That's what it felt like. So then at about 5 o'clock, he goes, we've got to deplane because these guys are having a tough time fixing the latch, so I don't want you to keep sitting here after an hour and a half, so we're going to deplane. So they deplane us. It's about 5:15. And then they start handing out the food vouchers. So I take the food voucher. I look at this thing. It's all the fine print. I go to a restaurant to sit down with the food voucher because now we're looking at a 7 o'clock takeoff. And I go to a restaurant there, and they say, hey, this isn't good here. Well, why isn't it good? Well, it's only good for, like, you could take out from here, but if you want to sit down, you can't use the food voucher here.
I'm getting pissed now.
Needless to say, it was not going well at that point with the food voucher. And by the way, the food voucher isn't even really covering the cost of a meal in an airport. It was for $12. I'm not sitting here to complain about that, but when's the last time any piece of food in the airport cost you less than $12? It's a complete scam. It's a monopoly that they've got there. There's nothing there for under $15. So either way, they're not even covering the cost of a meal. That being said, I go find something else to eat. All right, we got a 7 o'clock takeoff. Well, 7 o'clock becomes 7:30. They can't find a pilot. Now we're at a new gate. No pilot. Hopefully he's coming soon. 7:30 becomes 8 o'clock. Finally, a pilot shows up around 8, different gate, different airplane, the whole thing. And by the way, at about 7:40, I felt so bad because usually I'm traveling with kids. I wasn't on Friday, and thank goodness for that. But I felt so bad because this kid, he's probably 3 or 4 years old, right between my girls. He's there with his mom. Dad wasn't there. And he just starts throwing up all over himself, like right in front of me. And the mother just handled it perfectly. She just rolled with it. She told somebody. They had to bring the cleaning crew over. I mean, it was all over the carpet. He's yakking all over his shoes, his shirt. It's one of those, when kids sometimes throw up and they just don't stop? It's like they throw up and it stops for maybe a second or two, and it just keeps going in like spurts for about 30 seconds.
And they don't know what to do. They're just standing there throwing up on themselves.
It's all over themselves, their shoes. I mean, it stunk to high heaven, but I had a pretty good seat, so I didn't want to give it up. I mean, it was one of those throw-ups, and I'm like, this is how this day is going to go, huh? So I landed in Kansas City on Friday night at about 11 o'clock, got home at about 11:45, and the only thing I kept saying to myself is, thank goodness I didn't have my kids with me. There were a lot of people on that flight with kids coming back to Kansas City after Thanksgiving, and it was one guy who was going from Maine to Kansas City. He was connecting at JFK, and he had been in the airport with 2 little kids, about my kids' age, for 8 hours. And by the way, his kids were outstanding. I'm like, dude, you got to give me some advice here. His kids were great, way better than mine would have been. So, I'm not here to say woe is me. I'm just here to say if you had a bad travel weekend, I sympathize with you.